Welcome back, Ronin Renegades. I am Lupine Fiasco, this is Daily FaB Gameplay, and I've got a Viserai match for you today. For anyone who is new to the channel, welcome to the Resistance. What we do here is review replays of games that I have played on the Talishar client days or weeks ago, after enough time has passed that I lose my bias and can more objectively judge the quality of my play. I will talk through turn cycles while explaining my thought process for the lines that I take, and compare that to what my past self did at the time of recording. We either learn from my mistakes or reinforce good play patterns with the overall goal of tightening and optimizing our gameplay in the future to take down paper events like Pro Quests or Road to Nationals, and most importantly, walk away with that shiny, shiny cardboard. If you would like to check out the list that I am using here, or try it for yourself on Talishar, the FaB deck link is available in the video description below. While you are down there, if you haven't already done so, please consider subscribing to my channel. A YouTube subscription is the best free way to support me and to make sure that you see daily FaB gameplay in your video feed 5 days a week. The best paid way to support me is through Patreon, and a Patreon link is also available in the video description. A Patreon subscription will get you Discord access. Your name will be featured in every daily FaB gameplay video, and there are even more great bonuses to come. Daily FaB gameplay will always be free 5 days a week, so for those who can afford to patronize me, I truly appreciate it. With the preamble done, let's get into our sideboard and our game plan. We lose the die roll, and we have been chosen to go first. Makes sense. Viserai is generally an aggressive hero, and in the aggro matchup, you always want to go second if possible, so you can block out whatever your opponent does on their first turn, then crack back on your first turn. We are not going to change our sideboarding based on going first or second. I am a fan of using Kodachi momentum in this matchup. Viserai has enough armor to block pretty well, but not great, and games don't run as short as against faster aggro decks like Ninja or Mechanologist, so we can afford to get our value over a few turns rather than needing that explosive Pouncing Link's turn within the first 3 turns of the game. I don't value Spell Void very highly in this matchup. We don't particularly need it. Nothing that Viserai does hinges on dealing rune chant damage. So we are going to keep our Spell Void in the sideboard. We can take a look at our 60 here, which is not going to change based on the matchup. Viserai does not get any defense reactions. We don't need Spreading Flames. So we are going to run as is. General game plan here is to race. We can do some blocking. Again, it isn't a super fast matchup. This isn't Dash.io. We don't need to throw everything at aggro and hope that it works out. So we can play for more of a tempo, value-based game. If we can get more value out of blocking than we can on offense, then we should block. Blocking Maverian Skies is the most important thing we can do. Red Maverian generates 3 unblockable damage, with us having AB 0. So stopping that Maverian attack is pretty important. It isn't the most critical. I think the mentality of absolutely blocking Maverian Skies at all costs is really a holdover from a time when Rosetta Thorn was legal and dying to arcane damage was much more common than it is now. The on-hit for Maverian Skies is good, but isn't incredible. It isn't great, it isn't game-breaking, and that's a lot of Viserai's attacks. Meet and Greet, good on-hit, not game-breaking. Swarming Gloomveil, great on-hit, not game-breaking. Nebula Blade, good on-hit, not game-breaking. Consuming Volition is probably the most devastating on-hit that Viserai has, but the card that we would use from hand to block the Consuming Volition could just be discarded anyway. So we can treat Viserai as pretty akin to Ninja, a lot of damage, not a ton of on-hits that we need to care about. So get your value when you can, otherwise we are just going to race. And that is what you're going to see in this matchup. So we'll just jump into it and see how all of our preparation comes together. get a nice little chain link summary bug there. We have a few options on how to play out this hand. I have been experimenting lately with the idea of just arsenaling a card when we have a pretty good hand like this and shipping it back to our opponent to give them less of an opportunity to filter bad cards out of their hand. And we can see this hand is phenomenal. We have a blue, we have a red, we have an Art of War, and we have a Draconic starter. So really, regardless of what we drew off the top of our deck, we could have a very nice 5-card Art of War hand going into our next turn. So you'll see me push a little damage here. I really don't know if it is correct to leak some damage or not in these sorts of matchups. I think it is something I'm going to experiment with more. If I was taking this turn now, I would just Arsenal Art of War and pass. Obviously, if you have a bad opening hand, take the opportunity to filter it, but this is a really, really good opening hand. I would be happy to just pass. As it is, we are going to play this out. So opening with Brand to make our first Kodachi Draconic. He's going to let us pick up and play our Phoenix Flame this turn. I am not expecting Viserai to block certainly the first Kodachi. I'm a little surprised that he would not block the second. We'll throw a Ravenous Rabble here to try and get our Mask of Momentum draw. We're unlikely to get it, of course. But we do get a Revel in Runeblood out of Viserai's hand. It's pretty good for us. And a Swarming Loom Veil as well. So we leak 2 points of damage through Viserai's blocks. But I really don't think that was worth it. I think we would have rather just kept a very good Art of War hand. We draw into a better Art of War hand. We can't know that in the past turn. But this is a hand that makes me want to take all of Viserai's damage, right? We're going to play our Art of War, we'll pitch our blue, and we'll banish our E-Strike. We have a red Brand, a Blaze Headlong. We're going to be able to pick up and play our Phoenix Flame. So it's very unlikely that I'm going to block with anything this turn. I can block with the E-Strike and Flamescale Furnace, maybe even Shuko if I need to. But with this Revel in Runeblood, I'm thinking we're not going to even get the opportunity to do so. Swarming Gloom Veil is not an attack we need to block, it's just 3 go again. Revel in Runeblood, of course, makes unblockable arcane damage. And Nebula Blade here comes in for 4, makes a rune chant on hit, but like I said in the intro, this is not a meaningful on hit. This is 1 additional point of damage, and this E-Strike that gets banished to an Art of War is absolutely worth more on offense than it is on defense. So we're going to take the Nebula Blade damage, go to 27, give Viserai a rune chant, and take a look at our hand here. I'm experimenting more with the Art of War as combat trick. So how I would want to sequence this turn is Kodachi, Brand with Cinderclaw, Blaze Headlong, and wait for Viserai to block either the Brand or the Blaze Headlong. Viserai has enough armor that he can comfortably block either of those with just armor. Grasp and Aether Ironweave is 3 block against Brand with Cinderclaw. Aether Ironweave and a 3 block from hand is a clean block on Blaze Headlong, or even Grasp and Crown of Providence. So I am going to get a little tricky here. I do, though, want to play around Aether Ironweave blocking the second Kodachi, which is why you see me hesitate here, trying to figure out if that is the play, and I am going to decide to throw 1-3-4 as opposed to 1-1-3. I just don't want to give Viserai the easy armor block on a Kodachi that I can't buff with Art of War. So Viserai does walk into the trap. We draw an E-Strike and a Warmonger's Diplomacy off of the Art of War, and from the Mask of Momentum hit, we draw a Lava Burst. So, interesting sequencing here. We do have our 3 Draconic links, so we can pick up and play our Phoenix Flame. At this point, We have interesting sequencing. We'll play this Phoenix Flame for sure. Once we play the Phoenix Flame, we have a few lines available to us. We can play this Lava Burst, snap it, E-Strike for 8. We could E-Strike for 8, snap it, Warmonger's Diplomacy. We could E-Strike for 8, Arsenal the Warmonger's Diplomacy. If I'm making the call now, I think I am going for just the most damage I can. I think I'm playing this Lava Burst for 7, snapping it, E-Striking for 8. Maybe E-Strike for 6, draw a card. Certainly Lava Burst for 7. I've been a fan of the aggressive Snapdragons. Let's not use them to fix a bad turn. Let's use them to get value. I opt to play the Warmongers. Viserai chooses War. We, of course, will choose War and are just going to Arsenal this E-Strike and pass. I don't know if I love that play. Warmongers against Viserai is extremely powerful. Against any of the Rune Blades, it's extremely powerful. Viserai, in particular, really hinges on playing a non-attack and attack action card in the same turn, as that is Viserai's hero power. It mattered a lot more when Viserai had Rosetta Thorn, but it's still relevant now. That said, I don't know if this Warmongers is getting us 8 points of value. Or even 9 points if we E-Strike for 6, draw a card. We would have drawn this Mounting Anger, which then goes into our arsenal, and maybe have a better way to use these 3 blues. So I don't know if that was great. Viserai being at 16 here and us having this 4-card hand, or Viserai being at 18 and us having a 5-card hand, honestly sounds a lot better than that Warmongers when Viserai has 3 cards in hand. And we see, of course we couldn't know at the time, but we drew into another Warmonger's Diplomacy, and I'm guessing it would be much more valuable to play on our next turn than on our last turn or on a turn 2 turns from now. So I think that was loose from me. I liked everything up to play Warmonger's Arsenal E-Strike. I think I would have rather E-Strike for 6, draw a card, Arsenal, pass. That said, we have of course already made the decision. We draw into a pretty clunky offensive hand. Defensively, this hand is very good. This meet and greet does not have Go Again, but it does have an on-hit of Make a Runechant, which again, not great value. This is not a menacing, threatening on-hit, but it is kind of relevant. Viserai dealing Runechant damage will turn on future meet and greets. It is unblockable damage, and considering just kind of how clunky this hand is, I think I'm more interested in blocking for 5, using Flamescale Furnace and one of our 3 blocks. On our turn, we can Kodachi, E-Strike for 7, push a good 3-card 9, and Arsenal this Warmonger's Diplomacy. We could also Kodachi, Mounting Anger, E-Strike for 5, draw a card, bottoming this Warmonger's Diplomacy, depending on how Viserai does or doesn't block. But I do think that blocking here and getting a little defensive value out of this hand is better than saving it for full offensive value. With full offensive value, we're looking at Kodachi, Mounting Anger, E-Strike for 7, Arsenal, a Warmonger's Diplomacy, which is a good 13 value turn. But I do think that between blocking and Kodachi, E-Strike, we're getting a little more value out of this turn cycle. Choosing not to block here, I also want to point out with our Mask of Momentum, putting additional links on the chain is worth considering. If we were going to threaten a second Mask of Momentum trigger by not blocking this meet and greet, that would be something worth considering. But with these 4 cards in hand, and considering that we want to save this Warmonger's Diplomacy, we are getting 4 links with the cards we have in hand. Kodachi, Mounting Anger, E-Strike. As opposed to 3 links from Kodachi, E-Strike. I don't think the value is there. I think we should be blocking this meet and greet and keeping our life total a little higher for when Viserai does pop off. Of course, we have already made the decision. We should open with Mounting Anger here. Let's see if we can get Viserai to do a bit of blocking. And depending on how Viserai does or doesn't block, we can make the choice between E-Strike for 7, threaten that card draw even though we already have something for Arsenal, or we can E-Strike for 5, go again, and really pressure Viserai into giving us more cards on defense. Either way, I think leading with Mounting Anger is the correct call. I'm going to lead with the Kodachis instead, likely going 1, 1, 4, 7. What I don't like about this line is blocking 4 with Crown and Grasp is very easy for Vis. So we aren't really pressuring him into making a mistake. He can block this Mounting Anger, just take the E-Strike for 7. Very easily get more value out of that 4-card hand than we forced him to give up. He does give us a card from hand, as opposed to the Crown. So I guess that's good, but I don't love this line. I think we could have played this whole turn cycle a lot better. Viserai with Runic Reclamation and Mauvrian Skies, coming with Drawn to the Dark Dimension, which just draws a card. So we're looking at essentially 8 points of value here. If Drawn hits, we allow Viserai to generate 2 rune chants. With the Go Again, this can then break either Ironweave to attack with Nebula Blade for 4. So overall, we're taking 13 damage this turn, and Viserai gets a rune chant at the end of it. In exchange, we would be able to 4-card Art of War, ending the turn with a Warmonger's Diplomacy. So either Viserai takes a ton of damage on his turn that gets his entire crackback stifled by this Warmonger's, or Viserai does a ton of blocking, essentially loses his turn, and we keep our Warmongers for the future. I am okay with blocking this Drawn. I think we can play the value game. We can follow up with our Warmongers and Arsenal this Art of War. So I would like to block the Drawn with Furnace, Shuko, and Ravenous Rabble. I think we're running out of time to get value out of our Shuko. We're going to play a Warmongers, basically Time Walk Viserai, then Arsenal this Art of War for our next turn. And I think we are more likely to get value out of a Shuko block now than trying to save it. So I like the Furnace Shuko Rav Rabble block on our turn with Kodachi, Mounting Anger, get a card out of Viserai's hand, or Viserai maybe gives us the card draw, gives up Crown, the last half of Grasp, and Creepers, and then we Warmonger Vis and punish him for keeping a 5-card hand. Either way, I think we're blocking this. I don't think this 4-card Art of War that ends in a Warmongers, especially when we don't have Snapdragon, to finisher snap Warmongers is worth. So that's the line I take. Happy to see it happen in the past. We will Kodachi Mounting and see what part of this, if any, Viserai wants to interrupt. Viserai uses the Grasp to stop the Kodachi. This is totally fine. Mounting Anger here doesn't threaten card draw, but we do know that Vis wants to keep this 5-card hand, which we will punish him for doing by really disabling his ability to get incredible value from it. We both choose War. We draw into a really good hand. Double Art of War with 2 blues, and especially a card we don't mind banishing to the first Art of War to get this started, is great. E-Strike for 5 is something I'm comfortable taking. At this point, unless Viserai finds a way to kill us, we don't need to block any of this, and certainly not do it with cards from hand. We might give up Mask of Momentum and Furnace here to prevent lethal, but we really want to keep this 5-card Art of War. Using the Furnace here just to mitigate a little damage, it is important to block earlier with your armor
against Runeblade
than you normally would, to make sure you don't die to just a random Revel in Rune Blood that generates the unblockable damage that kills you. Leading with Kodachi Double Strike is a great line. Here we are presenting Viserai with multiple opportunities to block Double Strike for its exact damage, then Art of War over the top. So the line of thinking here is we Kodachi Double Strike to leave these 2 floating resources to pay for 2 Art of Wars. What I was really hoping for here is that Viserai would block this first Double Strike with Creepers. We can Art of War over the top of Creepers to get our second hit on this chain. Then we Double Strike for 2. Viserai puts Crown in front of it, and we Art of War over the top of Crown to get our third hit. We draw our card for momentum, and we have really allowed Viserai to burn resources for no gain. Viserai does not walk into it on the first Double Strike attack. We'll see he does walk into it on the second. So we're going to Art of War over the top of this Creepers and decide from there if we want to Art of War again. Yes, we do. And we want to Art of War again because we have a Lava Burst, which we will get Rupture value out of. And we have a Bleed Out that we can't get value from. We would have to play the Bleed Out now. It does cost 1 instead of 0 because our second Kodachi hasn't dealt damage. And that just isn't enough value this turn. We're trying to close this game out, so I would like to get an extra point of damage from this 1 Double Strike attack, draw into 2 new cards, which are hopefully better than Bleed Out, then draw into a third card with Mask of Momentum, and really just put a big, powerful end to this game. The other consideration, of course, is Double Strike hits, attack with Bleed Out, play another starter, then Lava Burst, then Arsenal, our second Art of War for our next turn. But Viserai has kept a 5-card hand. Viserai is still at 9 here, and we're at 8, an effective 10 with Mask of Momentum, but we certainly aren't sitting very pretty in this game. We need to end this game now. We draw a weird looking hand to do it, but very possible to win here. We are going to brand with Cinderclaw, then pitch our Lava Burst to our Kodachi. Kodachi becomes Draconic. We follow that with Blaze Headlong, which gives us our third Draconic Link to pick up and play our Phoenix Flame, then finish up with Salt the Wound. The reason that we are playing Salt here instead of Lava Burst is that we have 3 links on the chain currently, so Salt's power is going to be at least equal to Lava Burst's, and only gets more powerful as Viserai starts getting hit more and taking more damage. Viserai on a hope and a prayer here, going down to 2 and getting hit by a 10 damage Salt the Wound. Viserai's cards in hand and armor are not going to stop it, and we pick up the win. I don't want to discount how we kind of just rolled Viserai at the end of that game. We saw 3 Art of Wars in 5 turns. We saw 2 Warmonger's Diplomacies. Our turn cycles really were Warmonger's Art of War, Warmonger's Art of War, which is exactly what we want to see against Viserai. Even then, we ended the game at an effective 10 health, which sounds like a lot, but really isn't, considering how explosive Viserai can be with a 3 or 5 card hand. We were maybe a turn faster than Viserai needed us to be, and if Vis had had a little more time maybe we don't get there. But it is important to look at the high roll games and see where we could even still tighten up our game plan. We saw a few instances in this game where we had some choices. Do we take the Mauve Sky's attack or do we block it? How are we utilizing that 3/3 block hand? And I think we utilized it poorly. We could have done some more blocking, kept our life total a little higher just in case we don't draw into the second Art of War or even the first Art of War, just in case Viserai gets a high roll of his own. So we could have played this game better. We got lucky at the end. We drew very well all game, and it worked out in our favor, but I do think we could have tightened up our play here. I hope you enjoyed this game. I hope you found it helpful. If you did, head jab at that like button for me. My comments are always open for any questions or feedback, and I will see you all back here tomorrow for more daily FaB gameplay. Until then, take care.